I want to spend a little time today talking about the Trail of Tears for a couple of reasons. Number one, it will be super helpful when we are talking about the removal of the Nemapu Indians from the West. But more importantly, this is something that happened to people who live here. Um, Obviously, not people who are still alive today, but the ancestors of the people who lived here. And I think it's very important to understand the history of where we live and of our people. Um, I am not Native American myself, but I did grow up at Smoky Mountain Elementary School, where almost all of my friends were part of the Cherokee Nation. So it was very important to me, and is still very important to me, to understand what their families went through. Not my friends, not even their parents, but their great great grandparents, and how they had to fight for their place on this earth, even though they were here first. So we're going to look today at some information. The National Park Service has great information about the Trail of Tears. I want to read just a little bit to you, and then I have a video that they have put out that I want to show you, just to give you some information about the Trail of Tears. So as you can see, this is from the National Park Service website, um, and the trail runs from Alabama. Um, we have, well, if you look here, we've got all of the southeast here: Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. Um, we'll look at some maps here in just a few minutes. You're going to want to pay attention today. You'll have some questions to answer and some activities to complete with this information. Okay, let's read. So this is just a brief history of the Trail of Tears, the history and culture section of this website. And we'll start reading here. In 1830, Congress passed the Indian Removal Act, which required the various Indian tribes in today's southeastern United States, that's where we are, to give up their lands in exchange for federal territory, which was located west of the Mississippi River, so on the other side of the river from where we are. Most Indians fiercely resisted this policy, but as the 1830s wore on, most of the major tribes, the Choctaws, Muskogee Creeks, Seminoles, and Chickasaws, agreed to be relocated to Indian Territory in what's now Oklahoma. The Cherokee were forced to move because a small rump faction of the tribe signed the Treaty of New Echota in late 1835, a treaty that the U.S. Senate ratified in May of 1836. This action, the treaty signing and its subsequent Senate approval, tore the Cherokee into two implacable factions: a minority of those who were allied with the treaty party, and the vast majority that bitterly opposed the treaty signing. So you've already split the tribe in half: people who did agree to go and people who were going to fight everything. They didn't want to leave their land. In May of 1838, the Cherokee removal process began. U.S. Army troops, along with various state militia, moved into the tribe's homelands and forcibly evicted more than 16,000 Cherokee Indian people from their homelands in Tennessee, Alabama, North Carolina, and Georgia. They were first sent to so-called roundup camps, and soon afterward to one of three immigration camps. Once there, the U.S. Army gave orders to move the Cherokee west. In June of 1838, 3 detachments left southeastern Tennessee and were sent to Indian Territory by water. Difficulties with those moves, however, led to negotiations between Principal Chief John Ross and U.S. Army General Winfield Scott, and later that summer, Scott issued an order stating that Ross would be in charge of all future detachment movements. Ross, honoring that pledge, orchestrated the migration of 14 detachments, most of which traveled over existing roads between August and December of 1838. So maybe part of that was good because they were moving their own people, but you're still moving people who don't want to move. It's a treacherous journey. It's a long journey, and the only way to go is to walk. It says that it was already existing roads, not roads like we have. Paths that people would normally take. Those were the roads. The impact of the resulting Cherokee Trail of Tears was devastating. More than 1,000 Cherokee, particularly the old, the young, and the infirm, that means the sick, died during their trip west. Hundreds more deserted from the detachments. which means they ran away from their groups. They weren't going to be relocated, but that means they had to leave their people. Um, so they were still relocated. They still didn't get to stay with their people. And an unknown number, perhaps several thousand, perished from the consequences of the forced migration. They're being forced to go. They're not ready to go. They're not prepared to go. Um, that's not the kind of trip you take without getting ready. And so this was a big problem. People didn't make the trip. So we have tears on this trail for many reasons. They're being forced from their homes. Some are being forced from their families. They're losing family members on the way, either because the family members are running away or are dying, or they're having to travel with sick people, which is so hard. Or think about the oldest person you know. Now think about forcing that person to walk hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles with no place for rest, no McDonald's to stop along the way. It was not a happy trip. It was not an easy trip. It was not a trip anybody wanted to take, but they were forced to go. The tragic relocation was completed by the end of March 1839, and resettlement of tribal members in Oklahoma began soon afterward. The Cherokee, in the years that followed, struggled to reassert themselves in the new unfamiliar land. Today, they are a proud, independent tribe, and its members recognize that despite the adversity they have endured, they are resilient and invest in their future. This independent tribe, they have, if you go to Cherokee today, you will see the Cherokee school system set up completely apart from North Carolina schools. They run themselves. The Cherokee Fire Department, the Cherokee Police Department, the they have their own government system. They have their own court system. They have their own sanitation and health departments, their own hospital. Uh, they are a nation on their own without us. They are fiercely independent. They take care of each other. They take care of themselves. Um, and part of that is because they were forced. They were forced to do that because this was a time when nobody else was taking care of them.